I'm here today with Suzanne Smith and Sylvia Solf, the directors and producers of this incredible documentary, Joy Dancer. Thank you so much for taking the time to meet with me today.
It's a pleasure.
So I'm curious to know how this project came to you. Did you go to Gregory? Gregory come to you, please. How did...
Well, Sylvia can speak to her dance background, which is very significant for the film. But and I have been moving into the arts world over the last decade or so in New York, and filmmaking and art making, and in fact, I've come to London to also do some more art school. But for me, the film started in a sort of previous life where I was traveling and working in conflict-affected countries. And I would see, I guess, two main things. One is the difficulty of people had just dealing with the trauma and bringing communities back together again after civil unrest and wars, and I saw in the process of traveling and working, I saw young leaders who were doing amazing things to try and create opportunity for people, to help people understand each other's stories, and just develop empathy between communities who had been at war. And I just thought that was incredibly admirable, and I thought I would love to make films about that. And at the same time, I found some of these leaders doing it through art. And so for me, the film brings a lot of those strands together. Sylvia can talk about how we found Greg, but that was sort of my where I came from with the film.
Right.
So I have a dance background. I've danced for about 25 years, and it's always been a community. I studied dance in Germany, in Cuba, and UK, so I always follow also the artists. And I saw Greg perform in the US the first time, and it was a piece about his ancestor, and that performance really stuck with me. It was the way he told the story or explored the story in a non-verbal way, in a non-linear way, and exploring history. And so Suzanne and I connected over this question of how do societies move on when you've been so torn apart. And having the dance background, I know how history also sits in your body, and kind of the ability of artists to bring that out and to release emotions, but also to grapple with what you can't put in words. And there's a lot of processing and the space that art creates for people to then also to come together, to have a dialogue, to have empathy on a very human level. That was something that connected both of us, wanted to tell the story. And then when I saw Greg, I'm like, he personifies all of that. And then we learned he is from South Africa, but he left South Africa and then went back to make a difference after the end of apartheid. So it was those elements of leadership, dance theater, using it in an activist way to heal wounds, basically, your own wounds, provide a space for others. And so we met Greg through a common friend of mine, actually, who's also from the dance community. He's also South African. He's joining us this afternoon at the premiere, Nati. And so Nati and I, we called Greg and we're like, well, we have this idea. And what do you think? And Greg really graciously, the theme connected with him in terms of the power of creativity and the arts and to create the space for people to come together and tell their stories and to learn about each other's stories. And so he was like, yes, come to South Africa. And then Suzanne and I went, and it was in our first film shoot that actually the genesis for the work that we then ended up filming, the making of, occurred.
And so how did the two of you come to be producing partners and co-directors? What's the history that you two have? How did you meet?
Well, we worked together we both have backgrounds in development, economic development, and so that's how I was in conflict-affected countries. So we knew each other. We knew that we were both interested in film, and then I started to get into film, and so we just decided at some point we've got to make a movie about this subject, and then it became Greg, and it's a theme that we would want to continue working with because it just feels so worthwhile. Yeah.
And how did Thathuka come in with the element of the live choir? Was that Greg's idea? Was that coming from him? Because I enjoyed that element. I love when you can merge the different arts together into one piece. Like, it doesn't just have to be dance or theater or choral.
Right. That is Greg. Greg is a serial collaborator. He loves collaborating. He does a lot of his work is live vocals. He works with sound designers, with fashion designers, and so he actually Tutuka came into place, which was interesting because when we first met Greg, we asked him, "Can you take us to places that are very meaningful to you?" And he took us to the Apartheid Museum, which offered him a space when he had none for the company. He also staged performances there, and we stumbled on this sound installation, and it was the black and white portraits of the African choir, and it was the African choir that went to London in the late 1900s, and the music was African hymns, traditional hymns, and choral music, but in a very intriguing, interesting way. If you infused with African rhythms, distorted, and absolutely beautiful. And there was a magic in that space. And Greg spontaneously did an improvisation. It was a 15-minute single take, and it's the opening of the film. And when we walked out, he saw, Tutuka Sibisi's name. And Tutuka was one of the composers who also was part of that installation. And they were working together on a set of another piece at the time. And so when we showed them footage of that at some point, and the composer, both Tutuka and Gregory, they saw it and they were just mesmerized because Gregory brought it to life. And so he knew Tutuka already from the other set with William Kendridge. They're working together, and so they wanted to collaborate. And then they saw the footage, and that initiated the making of Broken Chord. But the fact that Greg is always collaborating with composers and with other artists, that's very much him, very rare.
And what was interesting about this was that you kind of merged different ones. We got to see part of what inspired the creation and the dances in the museum and the traveling that was done, and then the actual rehearsal building into some of the performance. How did you overcome some of those challenges?
So I think two things, and I would like Suzanne to add as well. So one, we were in a real privileged position to be able to follow the story. So we were able to follow organically, in the end, the making of Broken Chord. And the way Broken Chord happened with the four singers incorporating the local choir, that was because of COVID. Initially, they wanted to have a choir of 12 singers, and they were going to tell the story more like it was literally told. And then they had to reduce the number of singers. And for Tutuka, of course, that was extremely devastating because you need the soundscape, you need the volume. So then they had the idea of, we're just going to incorporate a local choir. And since we're performing this to Europe, the local choir is probably going to be white Europeans. So they will play Europe in the actual performance, and then when they went to Spain and arrived in Spain, and then Tutuka was quarantined. In a way, it was a very, again, it's the way Gregory works in terms of very always collaborating, always making sure everybody is coming along with him, and the incredible discipline and leadership that you also see in the film. He basically was there by himself and had Tutuka connected, but he had to somehow bring this piece on stage. But then also involving Tutuka in a very, very modern way through the iPad, through the iPhone. So in terms of kind of bringing everybody together, that was. We were able to just follow organically. It was really Greg who brought the artists together, who brought everybody together. In the end, in the edit, that was that was then where we came in, and like, how do we weave these different stories together? Also, you see some of Greg's inspirations, Greg's journeys, and that interwoven with the story of Broken Chord, which to some extent is also a metaphor for his own experience sometimes as an artist, as a performer traveling abroad.
We also had a fabulous local crew. We always worked with a local crew. And so they were rehearsing during COVID, and we couldn't travel to South Africa. So it was we had the luxury of a really good crew who had already established a good relationship with Greg, and so they could just go and do the shoot. And every night we would look at the footage and say, this is what we would like tomorrow. But being able to having that relationship with this local crew was really amazing. And then I for me, what was so exciting about following this was that the fact that you have two artists with completely different languages, the body language and the musical language, and it meant they had to talk more about what they were trying to do and help understand each other and communicate with each other. And so it was always the outside, the inside coming out that we were able to capture on the camera. And I think oftentimes, just say in dance, you don't get that sort of conversation if it's all dance artists, because a lot of it just comes from the outside. So that was what was really special for me, just two different languages and having to articulate what they were trying to do and what they were thinking and what they were feeling.
Nice. So you've made this first film, and congratulations, right, when you get the first one done. What, thinking back, was your favorite part of the filmmaking process?
I loved just the shoots.
Okay.
They were magical, and I think that was the main thing, because I'm fascinated by the creative process and how artists draw on memory. So that's what you see in the film, and so being able to shoot that was just amazing.
I can speak to a favorite moment or a few which are in the film, and we have extracts in the film. It's Gregory's improvisations, and I think being able to capture on camera when someone transforms, and you witness something that goes beyond a choreography. It's when I think a lot of artists speak to that, when like you're outside of yourself and there's a higher energy or power that flows through you. And I feel like we witnessed some of those magical moments with Greg on camera, and I think that was some of my favorite moments. And having like breakthrough ideas in the edit on how to tell the story.
Well, and one comment I want to make, and one thing I really appreciated about this is, oftentimes when we have documentaries about plays that come together, we don't always get to see the process, because as artists, with your dancer background, I have an acting background, we're very much like, no, the rehearsal process, that has to be a closed door. We don't want... So I truly appreciated that, you were able to show that. So as an artist, I want to say thank you. It was beautiful to watch the process building into the final product. And just in closing, because I thank you for your time, what are you hoping people take away from the film when they watch it?
So I think on a number one, appreciate what it takes to be an artist and how vulnerable you have to make yourself, and how much work and discipline it takes to put something out that actually really connects. And we're hoping that we showed some of that, and we're able to show some of that. And then on a second level, just the importance of humanity. I think that's also one of Gregory's his works really shows that, how we connect as humans on an emotional level. And I think art offers languages that are non-verbal or verbal, it doesn't matter, but it offers a different channel through which to connect to each other. And the importance of creating spaces for us to do that. And to just understand and learn about each other's stories and histories. So that's, I think, the main messages.
I don't have a lot to add to that, but I entirely agree. Just the importance of listening to each other, and those stories help with reconciliation and building bridges and breaking down walls.
Great. Well, best of luck with the film. It's
Thank
a beautiful
you.
film. Have a wonderful time at your premiere tonight.
Thank you
so much.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.